Welcome to another edition of Drummer Nation. Your host, Michael Vosbine. And if you like what you see, please remember to subscribe or hit that share button or the like button or whatever you're watching us on. Once again, I have a wonderful show for you. Help me get started with welcoming my co-host and partner in crime, Adam Nussbaum. How are you, good sir?
I'm here with Mr. Sleepy Cosmo,
Cosmo's our mascot.
my buddy.
And a very special guest today. He's one of the few drummers in the world where you go anywhere in the world, you say one name and you know who you're talking about. I'm talking about Vinnie, as in Colaiuta. Welcome to the show, Vinnie. How are you, sir?
Good. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. A long time. Now, there's so much stuff out on you, and there's so many legendary recordings, legendary tours, favorite recordings, instructional stuff. I want to talk. We only have a half an hour, so let's just talk some drummers hanging out.
Sure.
What? I know you do a podcast. I've been watching some of those Breakfast with Vinnie, and you're outspoken, clear-spoken, intelligent, articulate, interesting stuff. I recommend that. What's on your mind right now?
Not a lot, as per usual, but in terms of just generally speaking, I think I think about socio-political things a lot, and just what's probably in my focus. If I had a knee jerk, just kind of environmental stuff in the air and all of that kind of stuff. Um, I think that they're messing with the air, and it kind of makes me a little upset, you could say. Other than that, not a lot. I mean, especially musically, I'm just starting to sort of look at music with a fresh lens again. Partially because I've been inactive for a while, and I've been inactive because I had a problem about a year and a half ago, and it's been my bane for the past 18 months, shall we say, so basically a failed neck surgery, so it's sort of really impacted my career a lot. So I've been semi-retired uh for many reasons. One, I mean it kind of started when I think COVID really put a bit of a damper on a lot of stuff. And then after that, I started having these problems, and I went to have this surgery, and it just it was incomplete, and so I've been sort of suffering the consequences ever since. Kind of wondering, not sure what the next step is. But after the surgery, I couldn't play for 6 months,
Mm.
and that was really did a number on my psyche. Now I can record again, but I'm not at gig level where I could confidently go out and say, yeah, I'll go play, for 2 hours, because it could happen where all of a sudden, my hand goes numb, and I can't say, excuse me, can we stop for 5 minutes, take five in the middle of a set. You can't do that. But on a session, I can just say sorry, even if we have to stop a take. I could do that, and all is not lost. So
Right.
so I'm glad. I'm just sort of taking what I can get right now. But that's basically it. In a nutshell, and the fact that I'm up here. I don't live in Los Angeles anymore, but I'm within striking distance of it.
Where
I'm
are
in
you?
the mountains in an undisclosed location.
Okay,
But
gotcha.
it's actually it's actually snowing here. It's snowing today, and you would think. I mean, if you looked out the window, you think, "Where am I, in Vermont?" It's like that because of the altitude. We're at 4,200 feet, so um, about that roughly. So yeah, I lost my train of thought because I just saw the cat, and I was thinking I can't get up
Well,
and let the cat in now. So
well,
um,
being unable to play has led you to rethink everything, I imagine.
well, yeah. And so basically, at a certain point, then I started being able to slowly play again, and I did physical therapy, but I'm at a bit of a plateau right now, and it's a tough thing to reckon with, you know. It really is. It's a hard thing to deal with, but it is what it is, and you know, part of me has hope that you know maybe I have some time left if I can rectify it in some way. And part of me is thinking, well, if not, that I had a good run, you know. But you know, you were saying, Michael, that oh, there's a lot of stuff out there on me, and it's like, you know, I would see a lot of it, and I'd think, you really didn't get the best of me, you know. Um, there's just a lot of fluff out there, and some good things. Educationally, not a lot. I mean, I stayed out of that realm, and the reason I stayed out of it is because I think it's too saturated, number one. I think it's way saturated, but people seem to love it because it is the new gig now. It is the gig. That's the gig. You know, what other gigs are there? You know, like the gig is you put a channel up and go here, LR, or watch this. You know, and you too can do this, and it's like education was always like, well, I'd go to Alan Dawson's house and study with him, take a private lesson, or I'd go to music school, Now it's like YouTube, and I think that's what happened when they started giving music away. And
Mhm.
that was the first big part of the death knell of it was just give it away. Nobody wants to pay for it, but so you got to do something. So I'll just film myself. I'll just video myself and show people how to do stuff. And so sort of
Playing by yourself as well.
yeah, yeah, or with accompanying tracks. I mean,
Right.
every once in a while you'll see them streaming things with bands, but I tried doing that years ago, starting a streaming service in 2016, 2017 with a paywall, and I told my musician friends, listen, we could do this, and this is probably our last chance to make money, because what's going to happen is people are going to want everyone to stream for free, and I
Mhm.
guarantee you they're going to do it, but only because they want the attention. Then the people who are offering the streaming service are going to make more money off of you, but data mining you and ad revenue, this, that, and the other thing, and you're just going to be up there going, "Wee, look at me! Look what I can do now." And because we have bred, a society of people people love attention. Okay, we bred this society of narcissistic voyeurs, and I hate to say it, and it's not always like that with people who put videos up. I'm not saying that there are people that have common sense about it, but for the most part, you know, I think that those who run these mediums understand that part of human psychology, that people just want attention, man, you know, and because we're social beings. But I think that only having that be our source of attention versus social interaction, not necessarily the best way to go about it. This is a good
Mhm.
adjunct. It's a great adjunct because I'm talking to you guys. It's like, yeah, great. We're having a conversation, and that's great. Well, we're not having a safe conversation yet because I'm doing most of the yakking. Just put a quarter in me, and I've had people complain to me about that sort of thing. Like, well, you're interviewing somebody, but you can't shut up. You just want to hear yourself talk. And no, I don't want to hear myself talk. But if you ask me a question, I'm just going to ramble and say what's on my mind, And also, if I'm having a conversation with someone, sometimes the faucet just goes on full bore, and sometimes it doesn't, And right now is one of those times where the faucet is open.
Well, we appreciate that. While it's
Well,
open, let me drill
thanks.
in. Let me drill in on some of the things you mentioned.
Yeah.
The whole idea of school to be a drummer or a musician or a jazz musician can cost a couple of $100,000. And the elephant in the room is where are these people going to go when they get out? And does that make college a ripoff?
I think yeah, it's overpriced, and the return on investment is not. It's just, why would you do that? Why would you do that now? Why would you
Well,
spend all that money when you come out of school and it's like, okay, I'm going to see if I can get a gig. Yeah, you and everybody else, just like it's always been. What gig? There are less gigs now. So you're going to start a YouTube channel. That's probably what you're going to do, and go on
Mhm.
Instagram. And you could have done that anyway. And you go to these music schools now, and people can already play. And it's like, well, what do you what do you want? I mean, I've actually had to sit in on some classes and lessons for people before, and I've asked, said, well, what do you want? Well, I just want a gig like Miley Cyrus or something. I'm like, well, why? That's what you want, and you're coming here. Like, what do you are you going to take counterpoint to do that? Because if you are, then why? You know, and I'm not telling you not to, but if you don't have an interest in that, then just go and try to get a gig with Miley Cyrus. What are you doing here? You know, this
Mhm.
is it's overkill. You know, and you just do it. You know, and I'm not saying this to take take anything away from university. I just think that you know, if it was the way that it was, and people were buying music, and
Right.
I play, you pay, I play, or vice versa, then it'd be different because you could at least think, well, there's going to be a job opening. Like,
Hmm.
back in the '80s, I was talking to my friend Terrace Martin about this. And we had a conversation, and we were talking about how back in the '80s, man, guys who were playing in clubs were buying houses.
Right.
Try that now. First
Hmm.
of all, the house has increased so much that if you did buy one in the '80s, you're sitting on a cash cow, right now. But try buying one now, playing in a club. Forget it.
Can't happen.
It's a pipe dream. It's just not going to happen.
Well,
Not going to happen.
y- I have to agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think the unfortunate reality of the times that we're in is, like you mentioned, there are less gigs. There's less opportunities within the community
Hmm.
that used to exist. I mean, I know for me, I learned how to play in the community. I didn't learn how to play in a school. I had some modicum of some ability, and older, more experienced people hired me. When truth be told, I should have been paying them for the education I was getting and that experience. Now, the unfortunate thing is the community as we knew it in the 60s, 70s, 80s doesn't exist to the level that it used to. And it comes down to all these schools are looking at a chance to make some money and fill in what is not being available, unfortunately, in the community. And the reality is now the supply is exceeding far the demand. And
Yeah.
what we were saying, the amount of money that people are investing to learn how to play, you know, it's insane. And then the thing is, where are you going to get a return on your investment? I've seen so many people that have so much ability from the educational environment, or let me call it data, but they don't have the sensibility which comes from experience. And it's almost like
I know.
you're seeing people going from one side of the desk to
Hmm.
the other with no hands-on experience. I mean, I don't know about you. Did you ever finish Berkeley?
No, no, no.
Yeah. I never finished any school. I
I
was
went to
getting
North Texas. I
calls.
didn't finish there either.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
most people I know that could play were out there in the world
Hmm.
gigging.
Well, let me jump in.
And
You mentioned supply and demand, economic terms. People forget about the supply side. Like if I make these and I put them in the marketplace and there's a great demand for these, more people will make them. More people will put them into the marketplace. And when there's not a great demand, people will not offer them in the marketplace. But in the arts, it never changes. There are thousands and thousands of people adding to the supply side without any demand. And you just wonder where they're going and how it's going to happen. Or maybe it's a new thing we haven't thought of yet, or there's another something down the road. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think that the union, when the union had power, unionizing it so that you had a pay scale,
Yeah.
because even back then it was like, how many musicians were there that would never got to the level where they would become a studio musician, or maybe they were capable in terms of their ability, but they just never got the chance. So, you know And the same goes for getting a record deal and getting signed, which was probably why our parents said, you might want to have a plan B, or all of that stuff, because even then it was rough. It was a bottleneck where there were a lot of musicians that just funneled into a small amount that got record deals, right? Okay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you could play in clubs,
Right.
and the thing is, so even then, ratio wise, I think it was very similar. Uh, Therefore, the union made sure that we were going to have a certain kind of pay scale that would apply to all kinds of different types of jobs versus the pay that would be dictated by, well, there's a dime a dozen of you guys, I'm going to pay you 10 cents. The whole dictum of economics of where, if the price goes down when there's more supply than there is demand. And I'm not saying that to advocate for unions per se, but I'm saying that was a safeguard, because think about it. If you didn't have that kind of thing saying you got to make X amount of money, with as many musicians as there were, that, just like there are now, people would be like, well, there's a bazillion of you, so if you're going to tell me you'll do it for $10, somebody else is going to do it for 5, and they'll get the job done just as well. And now everybody can play. Everybody has chops. They're all sitting around, practicing things they see online. All the information's fed to them. Everybody's like, can do everything. And so it's kind of like, and then you see like DM me and I'll play on your record, which is, what's that anymore? What's a record? And so how do you can't. The only way you could sort of say, well, listen, this is what I charged, is because this is my identity. This is who I am. This is the sum of my experience, and that's what it costs. And that's it. And I think that really kind of should apply to everybody, in a sense, who has an identity. But back then, it also was pretty evident that people sounded very different from one another, and I think that could be backed up with evidential data. It's just not just something I'm making up. This is provable stuff. It was
Hmm.
that was it championed. That was championed then. Homogeneity was not even an issue. It was like people were like, they knew they had to bring their thing, whoever they
Your
were.
opinion.
Yeah, your identity,
Right.
like you knew right away you would never mistake Philly Joe with Max Roach, or Billy with Lenny. You just wouldn't, you know. They just sounded different, and then I go on and on and on with a
Well,
lot
I
of
heard your interview with Gary Chafee,
yeah.
and he talked about song forms and structures that have gotten shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. Where it used to be a standard 32 bar AABA, maybe there's a second ending, maybe there's an interlude or this or that, or a coda or something. But generally, there was a long format that lent itself to longer phrases. And now the phrases are getting to be B section. Hell, there might not be an A section. It could be 2 bars. And,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's the whole song.
Yeah. Like song form has changed, but it's kind of like, you know, and I don't want to say all this to be on a bitch fest, because you could take any of those parameters, and if you're brilliant, you'll do something with it that sounds brilliant. However, that's not to uh, justify the fact that these forms have gotten more deficit, shall we say? You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It doesn't justify it. It just means that there are people out there that will just take it and try to at least make it good. But oftentimes that stuff doesn't filter into the mainstream. The mainstream just
Right.
gets what they want to give us, and it's pretty dire, in my opinion. So, but there's a lot of talent out there and a lot of great music. You just got to kind of sift through more stuff to find it. I think it's not mainstream. Whereas I remember in the '70s, man, just driving through San Francisco putting on the AM radio, and Miles was on the radio. You know what I mean? It's like, try that now. It's not going to
Yeah.
happen, you know. And it just, it was just the mainstream was different, you know. Now it's just a little more underground. I think, you know.
Well, let's talk about what's real and what's not. It's gotten to the point where we don't know what we're hearing, even at a live concert. So I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. Every time I peel back another level of this onion, there's more there that disgusts me, you know. And this was a person who is from, a classical player, but gets hired to do, a pop rock band will come into town. They need a string section, right? Or they need some French horns or whatever. They hire those people locally, and they have to sign non-disclosure agreements and enter from this door and leave from that door. And this person told me, I'm sitting on the stage playing, and I'm hearing things that I know we're not playing. And it occurred to me that not only does the audience not know what they're hearing, the orchestra doesn't either. That was kind
Yeah,
of frightening to me.
it
You're
is
on
frightening.
stage with, I don't know, the Eagles or something. They've added sections, and they on stage can't tell what's real.
No, I think it's only going to get worse in that regard with the progress of AI. I mean, when I say worse, I mean more sophisticated, and the deception will be easier to sort of manifest. But you could very well, there could be any number of kind of positive backlashes whereby, can you imagine if you just went into a small place and you heard like an acoustic trio? You can't fake it.
Right.
You went into a club, you're going to go up there and go, yeah, okay, that guy's real. That's a real, yeah, yeah, he's playing. He hit a cymbal. I saw the thing strike the cymbal. Yeah, and I heard a sound. Okay, that was real. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
there's probably going to be a big appetite for people to know what is real. But on the other side, it's like people can get used to anything, which is kind of sad. It's like, you got to use your scruples and have a sort of a floor of what you consider to be valid in your own sort of your own personal musical canon. So
There are websites that will take vocal tracks and isolate them
yeah.
from live
Hmm.
recordings, and then
Hmm.
they'll have the same track 3 months later on a different continent, 3 months later in a different part of the world, and they put up the vocal track itself with the wave file, and they're indistinguishable, which means they're identical. It's not possible to do. So
Yeah,
they're
it's,
play
it's kind of crazy.
they're playing tracks that they're pretending to sing to. But on the other hand, Fred Astaire wasn't singing when he was dancing. They pre-recorded
Yeah.
that too.
Right, 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 right.
What does
Whatever
that
they can do.
mean?
Well, yeah, well, I think, I'm not sure what it means.
I'm not
To be
either.
honest with you, I think that those who produced those films were probably looking, if they found something that they thought was convenient. It could have either been a cost cutting measure, or it could have been like, oh, we can do this and we might be able to make that better if we record it later. So maybe it had a positive benefit, but it's a tough one to just answer on a knee jerk like that without thinking more about
Mhm.
it or investigating it a little bit more. It's like the first people, as soon as it was possible to do sound on sound, the first people that went nuts with it were classical musicians, you know, really
Mhm.
perfectionistic with it, and so, does that mean it comes with the territory? Maybe, maybe not, but it's kind of like we saw what social media did, and for the most part, people will take exercise that thing of, I want attention. For the most part, there are those who won't do that. Just like there are people who go in because they have unlimited multi-track recording now with digital recording. That doesn't mean they're going to nitpick everything and do a zillion takes. There are people who understand what the creative moment is, and they might, producers, and they might say, that's it. First take, you got it. Next. They've got the sensibility to do that, regardless of what this technology can tempt them to do.
Right.
If they're smart enough and they're savvy enough and they're intuitive enough and all of those things wrapped into one, then they'll do that. They'll know when to stop. But a lot of people don't. They don't know when to stop.
Were
And it
you ever
could,
on a Were you ever on a gig or a tour where the snare drum and the bass drum were essentially triggers that were triggering sounds that the producer provided that you had nothing to
No,
do with? Yeah.
no.
I didn't
It
think
was
you
all
were, but it does
after
happen.
the fact. After the fact, some
Oh,
of them did that. Some people did
mhm.
that kind of stuff after the fact. One guy, like I would never usually typically go into a control room to listen to myself on a playback. Oftentimes, I'm not saying that I did that every time, but it was kind of normal for me to not do that. And people would say, "Well, why?" And I say, first of all, I can't stand to listen to myself. Number two, if I did go in there, then I would have a conversation while the thing was playing. I'm like, "Well, why are you doing that?" And I would say, because if something is really, really bad that's worth listening to and fixing or redoing, it's going
Mhm.
to interrupt my conversation. And if it doesn't interrupt my conversation, it ain't worth even giving attention to. It's not. So I'm having a conversation once, and all of a sudden, I stopped in my tracks because everything sounded very, very wrong. And suddenly I realized it was the snare drum. So there was a guy over in the corner on Pro Tools, and he was like moving things. I said, "Could you please tell me what you're doing?" He said, "Yeah, I'm aligning all the snare drums to the grid." And I went, "Okay,
Uh,
can you please undo that? Because I did that on
of
purpose."
of
Okay.
course you did.
Yeah. You're not doing it to the kick drum. You're not doing it to the hi-hat. You're only doing it to the snare. Why? I did it behind on purpose. So now it doesn't sound good. Can you hear that? But he wasn't even listening. He wasn't listening at all. And I had to tell him, please undo it. And I
That's
wasn't
a
the producer. I
that's a
wasn't the producer.
master's touch. That's a master's touch. That's Vinnie Colaiuta in the studio. He's going to
But
subdivide those notes specific to
yeah,
him on that gig, on that tune, on that day, and then
yeah, I mean, I
they
did it
want to
for a
go
reason.
and mess with that.
Yeah. So
Uh,
it does happen sometimes, but yeah, I mean, it tended to happen less later on in my career. Like it was more like I guess when they start looking at you in a certain way, they start looking at you like more respectfully. Uh,
mhm.
you know, you just they just kind of don't mess with you as much. They just don't.
They
Uh,
wanted to hire you, and they should allow you to be you.
yeah, and that's kind of what happens
Over
as of
time,
yeah, as of late.
right. The other thing too, it's so ironic when we're talking about all these things because we are digital immigrants. We grew up in an analog world. We did not grow up in a digital world. That's a term my son used to my wife and I. He said to my wife and I, he said, "I'm a digital native. You're digital immigrants." And it's
Very
true
well said. Yeah,
because we grew up in a time where things were actual and analog as such. And now the whole template of how people are growing up, it used to be they tried to make the machines sound like people. Now people are trying to sound like machines. So it's just interesting the way all these things have occurred. And, we can't do anything about the times we're in. I don't know what's going to happen. When people say, "What's the future?" You got me. I think I maybe have a great future behind me. I don't know what's in front of me because I can't say. All I can do is do what I can do. And hopefully, when people hire you, they're going to respect you to go in and with your intuition and your abilities and your
yeah,
experience. That people want Vinnie Colaiuta because he's Vinnie Colaiuta. And
yeah, yeah.
what's so great, with the breadth of work you've been able to do, you've always been able to serve what the situation is first. It's always
Yeah.
been about serving the music and having that music be the best it can be. You're not going to play with Joni Mitchell the way you played with Chick Corea. You have to go in. I mean, it's the same for me. I let the music inform me. And that's something that we need to do. And that's why
Absolutely.
you know, that we've been fortunate. I mean, you have such a amazing amount of music that you've been a part of and created. And that's because of all these abilities working towards what the music has told you to play.
Mm.
And I think I don't know what's going to be, but this is it's an interesting discussion. You know, it's that old thing, you know, the higher you get up the mountain, the more there is to see. I only have
Mm.
more questions as time goes on.
Mm.
So it's a strange time now, you know, the whole thing with this digital world. Everybody now can put anything out there on social media. Anybody, you know, you can make your career with how many hits you have, how you know, present yourself. It's a
Yeah.
different time now. And
But that's only
Yeah.
available to certain people. You know what I mean? I look at the social media thing. You guys are celebrity drummers, you're established great musicians. How's the social media thing going to help a bassoonist? You know, looking for an orchestra gig, or people who aren't songwriters or actor, I mean, or you know, entertainers, front people, stars, celebrities, or established mainstream musicians who are well known. I'm not sure that social media is going to help the guy playing third trombone.
Yeah, it's unfortunately not because I think a lot of the audience people are steeped in sensationalism and they just want to keep continually feeding off of that. And unless the guy has a freaking bassoon and he pumps it through a stack of Marshalls and dresses like in some outlandish, you know what I mean, has some kind
Yeah,
of gimmick,
set something on
and it's like,
fire.
yeah, and unfortunately you're relying on that kind of gimmickry is like I don't see it as an enhancement anywhere. But
Right.
what you said, Adam, was a great encapsulation, and it's hard to top that. Not that this is a competition. I don't mean it in that sense. My vernacular doesn't imply that. What I mean is that you really really said a whole lot of valuable stuff, and it's all we try to serve the music. It's like, okay, what are you going to play? Well, what's the music telling me? you know, Instead of like, what am I gonna like? I'm gonna throw my stuff in there, that I've been shedding. It's what does the music say? So we came up in that time and being digital immigrants. But here's the thing: a lot of times, with people like myself that are boomers, they can't wait to go, okay, boomer, and I'm like, yeah, you got that right. I am one, and I'm gonna wear that proudly because I've got more lived experience that I can draw from that I don't need to Google. Okay. I don't need to Google it. I lived it. Okay. So I know what happened. So you're not going to tell me anything. So,
Hmm.
so number two, it's like, uh, we came up in the analog domain, but we also came up from the beginnings of digital through now. So we were there when it started and we're still in it. You know what I mean? It's just that
Hmm.
we didn't bypass physical CDs and go right to streaming. It's like we were part of all of it. And so does that make us less apt to understand it? I think not. I don't think it does. I
Makes
think
you
it
more
gives
apt to understand it.
I think it gives us a broad viewpoint of a
bigger
broad
perspective.
Hmm.
vantage point. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Sure.
And
Well,
I mean,
how old were you when you moved to LA?
I moved to LA in the spring of '78 after the worst blizzard that Boston had. We
Hmm.
couldn't move for 4 days,
But
and it was really bad. So I was like 20. I think I just turned
okay.
22. Mhm.
Okay, so the question is,
Yeah.
Vinnie Colaiuta, 22 today, moves to LA. What does the young Vinnie
No, you know
22
what?
right
You know
now
what?
do?
You know what? It would be like I see people like trying to get involved in sessions where there's collectives going on, but it's no guarantee of a gig. People know that there's a few gigs out there and they might go and clamor for them, but it would be kind of like to be visible on media. And I never wanted to do that. That's why I became a studio musician. Yes, I toured a lot. I toured a lot, but I wasn't out there, flaunting myself. But I also did sessions. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted to be heard, not seen. All I wanted to do was document the music. Now I go in and they want to video everything, and I'm like, oh, where's my script? You know, do I need to join SAG after? Am I the bad guy? What are you, Steven
Hmm.
Spielberg now? Why do you have to do that all the time? It's
Yeah.
normalized. And if you even ask that question now, it's like, what rock have you been living under for the last 10 years, 15 years, boomer? None.
Hmm.
I've seen it happen, but
Hmm.
I have not acquiesced to the normalization of it because I think it's stupid to do it all the time. It's like,
Right.
why do you have to do this crap? Well, yeah, don't aren't you glad that there was some behind the scenes stuff where they documented the Beatles in the studio a little? Yeah, but not every second.
Right.
Not every second. I mean, there were specialized people that did that, and some of the concert footage, it was produced well. And then the artist had to approve it instead of some guy who's got a camera behind you and he's sneaking up on you, and you're burping and you're farting and, you know, go away. You know what I mean? It's like, but
And you're not
people
getting
don't
paid for
care.
video either, right? There's no
No, and
check
then
for the
but
video.
but people don't care. They don't care. They don't care. It's just like whatever. Yeah, record. Hi, blah 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 blah. It's like, why? I'm doing this now.
I
I'm talking to you because you asked me to talk to you, not because I'm like, oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for people to watch me, talk. And you know what I mean?
Hmm.
I
Absolutely.
never got hired for how I looked.
You were always hired
People
for
always
your
hired
hair.
me for my sound. Well,
I thought
I
it was the
do
hair.
use I don't use a comb, but I use brushes. We know that. But
Rumpum.
this is a true thing. We have to remember at the end of the day, things have shifted so much.
Yeah,
People, the advent of MTV, people
yeah,
looking, watching. Wait a minute. What about just closing your eyes and listening
yeah,
and letting the music come
yeah,
into you?
yeah,
And that, especially now, I find
yeah,
that when I get to play good music with people, it's very cathartic.
yeah,
It's a healing
yeah.
force. And
It is.
Lord knows, we need it now more than ever.
Amen.
Well,
We sure do.
schools do offer that. I was just at an event this past weekend. It was a bunch of high schools
Yeah.
performing for review at a university, but the kids were playing in ensembles that were good, and they were
Oh yeah.
exposing themselves to music that they wouldn't know about. I mean, we don't want to
And they're
totally throw
great.
out the education idea.
No, no, no,
It,
no, no. They're great. And they're great. They've raised the bar. Kids are like really, really on their game and
right.
really, really very, very accomplished. They play well together and they're getting the opportunity to do that. And they know what the value of that is. And they
Hmm.
will get that in that realm, in that sphere. They'll get it. They will
Right, where they
absolutely
wouldn't get
get
it in
that.
the real working world, probably. A lot of these kids play better at that age than I certainly did. And I'm just hoping they can continue to do it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man.
Now, you mentioned
Absolutely.
something in one of your podcasts about who's happier. Is it the people who are dedicated, lifelong professionals? This is me. This is what I do. Damn it, I'm in it for my whole life. I've completely devoted to it. Or is it somebody who plays for fun?
A lot of times, I've seen musicians who are professional who are like on a session looking at their, oh, I can't
Mm,
wait to get out on the golf course. And I'm like, I never wanted to be that guy. I wanted to always be happy doing what I do because I love doing it. And I met other people who were not professionals who, you know, didn't have any kind of peer pressure. They didn't care about it. They didn't try to have some kind of, you know, work their inner psychology to think, oh, it's okay. It's a normal to have peer pressure and, deal with it on any level. They didn't, it's like they lived that old saying, like dance like nobody's watching. And you know what I mean? They just
mm,
played. And I remember going to Japan once and we were going there. I mean, I've been there a gazillion times. So I was going there with Abraham Laboyel Sr. We were going to play with, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Sadao Watanabe. Might have been him. And so we were going there and we met these guys on the plane and they were going back to Japan. They bought a bunch of like Mesa boogie amps and guitars and they were real happy. And we were talking to them and they were car designers. They designed automobiles for Nissan. So they wanted to come to our gig. So we said, sure, and then they ended up booking the same hotel we were in. And so after the gig, we went and hung out with them, and they would played us sets of their music. And I got to tell you something, man. If you took away that filter of looking at it from like this, judgmental thing of a pro looking at, you'd go, man, this is fresh, like these
Hmm.
guys they just didn't care. They just let it rip. And there was something very, very vital and creative and beautiful about it, you know?
Exactly.
Honesty.
Yeah,
You know, I,
exactly.
I used to
And we
wonder
felt
if
it right away, man.
I used to
You
wonder
know?
if I were a drummer 500 years ago and I'm in an African village somewhere and I'm playing my little log drum and another guy's got some skin stretched over something and we're around the fire. What's in my mind at that? Am I thinking, man, I hope I don't lose this gig, or I get hit better, I got to study this, or well, how do you make a living at this? And no, man, they're just in the moment, playing from their hearts, where music is supposed to be from,
That's
and
right.
without all the entrapments of all this other stuff we all have to
Yeah.
deal with.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I mean, you go to Brazil, you see it's like kids, like really young. They're all like, playing percussion instruments all day long. It's just part of their life. It's part of their culture. They
They're not
play music.
nervous.
No,
Yeah,
they play music. Period.
beautiful, beautiful.
And end of. You know.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long. You got anything you want to leave us with?
No, other than, I'm glad you had me on and gave me the chance to flap my gums as long as you have. And, I hope I didn't talk too much, but
Absolutely not.
you
You're the
know,
star of the show. We want to keep them fairly short, but maybe we could do some more down the road. You're always welcome here.
thank you so much, you guys. And I'm sure there's a lot to talk about. It's like, I will leave you one thing. People always ask me, why don't you talk about drums more? And I'm like, because it's an immersive experience to me. It's something I do. And I can only talk about it so much in the context of how we're talking about it, the application of it in terms of, contextual situations, things
Mm.
like that, versus, LRKKLLRRKK, you know, versus that. That's like, okay, I'll make one up and I'll do it too. Okay, let me make up my LLR KKKKR lick of the day and work on it until I get it in warp speed, and I'll just make it up because that's what
Mhm.
you're doing. You're just making stuff up. So you know what I mean? And I don't need to just make something up and then go on YouTube and try to make 50 cents from advertisements on it and just go look at me. I want to play music and I want to do it. And if I'm going to talk about it, talk about stories, talk about contextual applications, things like that, because that's the kind of life I lived with it. And that's why I think we're not only soloists, we're accompanists. And we have to understand that that's our basic role, really. Our basic role was not just to be soloist. So nothing against being a soloist, but that means we have to function in an environment, a contextual environment
Mhm.
and think on our feet, with
Musicians who happen to be drummers. That's the way I like to look at it.
yeah, but it's just context. So,
Hmm.
Kumbaya, baby. I want
yeah.
kumbaya with the situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's all
Yeah.
these this is why, I love making music with others.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And you do it
we
very well,
all
Adam.
I'm working on it, man. I just have gratitude as time goes on, you know.
Oh, thank you, brother.
And
Yeah,
and,
amen to
and
that.
Every now and then I have delusions of adequacy. I'll leave it at that.
That's
then
funny.
I hear you guys play, and I'm well, okay.
No.
Back to my mere mortal status. Anyway,
oh, gee.
thank you so much for being here, Vinny. I feel like I have a new friend.
Wait,
I've been waiting to meet you for a long time.
Right on, man. Right on. Thank you for having me. Thank
Adam,
you.
yeah.
always my trusty co-host. Appreciate you.
Great to see
Thank you
you.
for having me. Thank
All
you
right,
for
gentlemen. Love to you both. We'll talk soon.
okay.
You
Bye
got
bye.
it.